Alrighty, so that was a real mess there. That had dash fitting on it, so I've really carefully hole sawed that off there and then tried to straighten that up a bit or do a little bit more, but got on the lathe and made this, which is a spacer, which you can get up underneath and go in there. They get welded from underneath, and then I can linish that flat on top and then put a proper breather pipe on it, not a dash fitting. Also, the front mount off this was a real mess. It was all busted up and broken, so I've cut that off as straight as I can. And same on the back. That's like a real messy hole there, so I'm literally where those two texture marks are, I'm going to cut them off, and I'm going to be using this piece of plate here, so I've relieved this here so it fits around there, which is the original tank bolt, and this plate here sits under here, so that will go, so this will sandwich onto there as well. But yeah, then basically the tank can fit in there nice and perfectly. Probably put a bit of rubber under it or something like that, so it's not hard mounted. Get in there, and I'll do the same thing here. I've also machined these out like factory and put grommets and bolts in there, so it gives a bit of dampening in the front end, so this isn't all hard mounted. So bit by bit, I've got some other bar stock here that I'm going to use for making up the steering stops and some other bits. Okay, more progress with the tank yesterday. I don't mind that weld there, it needs a little bit of cleaning up, but it is got some pretty good penetration there. It'll get welded on the back as well. That's a new tab there. It was just, there's a lot of crap in between the layers of the aluminium, which was making it hard to weld. Had a bit better time on the front one here, so that's pretty good for me so far. And the tank, as you can see, was never really symmetrical, so I'm sort of going to have to trim that along there and there just to make it as clean as possible. And the tank's definitely not symmetrical anyway. It was handmade, but it looks pretty close gap-wise on both sides. But yeah, definitely being a handmade tank, it wasn't symmetrical. There's a bit of a dent in the tank here, I've noticed, so I'm actually going to try and strip the tank today just with an orbital and clean it up and get it back to raw aluminium, because there's some dents in the side here, but it's just hard to see with the paint and the graphic on it. So once it's raw there, you can see all the paint peeled off yesterday with the welding and the heat. But other than that, it's all sort of sitting right where it needs to be. So I'm going to rip that off and get into it more. And other than that, just other bits and pieces, just working out what to do with the Speedo at the moment. But I haven't been able to get a stack Speedo, a proper one, but I'm actually thinking of just using a factory Speedo and modifying it for the meantime. But we'll see how we go. More progress, very good. Alright, so that's where the dents are on the tank as far as I can tell. It's kind of like a lot of low section through here. I think at some stage it's had a hit there or something like that, and it was all dented back up here, so that's a bit lower around here as well. And in here there's a couple of sort of outwards dents here that need to be fixed. So a bit of a tap here and there, try and get these flowing properly on the outside. Should be not too bad. It's aluminium, so it's pretty soft, so worst case scenario is if it go too far, we can always tap them back in and then give it a bit of file on the outside. But yeah, there's a bit of work to do with getting all this right, because definitely not symmetrical here either, so I'm going to have to try and make a filler piece or something for the back here. and then make the inner skin for it. That should be fun. We couldn't get the hammer in there. I'm like, hang on a minute, that's a good hammer.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. This is good. Look at this. This is the non-superstar that does superstar cars. I've just come back from Rollin Relics with Adam, and what a legend. He does some really amazing stuff in there. He's a bit camera shy, so I wanted to do a bit of a workshop tour, but he's like, oh no, I'm no celebrity, but he does amazing stuff. You'll probably see him at some coffee and chrome and stuff like that in Adelaide, but mostly just as hot rods and chrome bumper cars. But he's just got on there and filed this, and they're still not perfect, but thing is, anyway, it's going to have to be finished afterwards. But we got the sides looking pretty good. There's little low spots here and there, but we can just fill them later anyway when we go to fix it up. But it's much better than it was. The heights are pretty good from here to here now as well, because that was leaning over a little bit because it was all dented through here. So now I've just got to really carefully weld this in, and then I can start working on the underside and then fixing it all up and clean up this weld, and then the filler section which will fill in these bits off the sides here, and yeah, should be pretty good. Okay, so that's the inner of the fuel tank, the bit that fits over the airbox, the front half. And I'm just trying to work out exactly where it's going to fit inside the tank. I did have one attempt at it, sort of tacked it in, but it wasn't quite right. And I kind of feel like these carbies are sitting up a little bit higher than they may have been on the bike that this tank originally came off. Maybe different spaces or something, so I've got to work that out. But I've given myself a couple of guidelines here. I might have to just tidy them up because they look a bit different from this angle, but where the front of the tank is, where that fold is, and then I'm also going to go and measure the height between that and there, so that when I set the tank on I can put all those marks on the tank as well and work out exactly where it's going to sit in there. So it's going to be a little bit of work, but I might end up having to trim this up or something, I'm not sure, but it needs to get that height up in the tank because it's pretty tight fit up in there. So as I keep saying, see how I go. So I've got this all on now, pretty much got the bottom the way I wanted. Not really that happy with this, so I'm going to redo that, and I'm actually thinking of going against my first thoughts and probably putting a dash fitting back on that, just for ease of actually wanting to get a fiberglass mould made of this. And if that's on there, that's going to make that a total pain in the butt. So I'm probably going to get rid of that, put a dash fitting on it, and then just put a curved hose tail on it. But underside wise, if I can flip this over without hurting it one-handed, I'm going to go over some of these welds again. This is all done by me, so it's not perfect, but it's all welded all the way around here. There's a couple to touch up and clean up, but I'm pretty happy with that considering a week ago I wouldn't have even wanted to touch this myself. So now comes to the bit where I've got to do the back section here, which is actually this part that was originally on it, which I'll just tip water on the table, but this sat kind of in here. And for anyone that knows the Fireblades, the earlier subframes here on the fire blades on the SC28s, this part of the frame actually went more vertical and the bolt was about here. And the subframe is shorter on the SC28, but on the 33s, they came forward. This came more of an angle. This part was scalloped on the SC28. But this one here, so I think what they've done is that tank was originally on a 28, and when these bolts have come forward on the 33 and they've tried to fit it, they've actually like squashed the tank and sort of not made a mess of it, but just sort of made it fit for the sake of making it fit. So this bit here is all sort of smashed in and a bit damaged, and I'm not sure along the lines where this sort of hose coming out of it's been sort of, I don't know whether they've tried to glue it or whatever, but it's a bit of a mess. So I'm pretty much decided this section here won't get reused, and I was actually just leaning on the idea of a piece of 6-inch round aluminium tube in there. And the reason I've got this bowl on the bottom of it is because I've just done a test, and I'll go and film it in a second to show you, to see what the capacity between that and that is, because it looks like that holds a lot more, but I've just checked it and it's pretty much identical. Like if I've got that slightly curved bottom on it, so I'll better find some sort of aluminium dome, even with, I mean that's probably only, I don't know, 100 mils or something like that in the bottom, so not very much. So even if I went for a flat bottom, the capacity is not really going to change at all, and it actually gives me more space down in the bike. That'll go down further, but gives me more space down there for stuff like fuel pumps and bits and pieces, because I'll probably will have to run a low pressure fuel pump in there. So yeah, that's pretty good. And yeah, I think that'll be quite nice, because that means I'll just be able to make a nice flat plate there, put a 6-inch hole saw in it, and then sit that in there. And this will actually, my personal thoughts is that this will actually sort of serve better as a, I mean, not that I really need a swell pot in there because it's going to be carby and just drawing fuel, but better than it sort of sloshing around in a big area there just with one feed on it. I could even put like a tapered bottom in it, but and I can also put a baffle in there if I want, so that the fuel doesn't splash up. But yeah, should be pretty good. I'll just go and set this thing up and film this so you can see what I'm talking about with these capacities. So there's the rough cardboard template. That can all go on the bottom there. What I'll do is I'll make it slightly big and then trim it back to suit, because there's no point making it exactly the same size because it might be too small, and then I've undercut it. So it'll go like that, and then that will sit, I'm not going to sit it on there because it's not going to hold the weight, but that underneath. So that'll go there, and obviously we'll fill the bottom, put it like a curved or a flat bottom in it, something like that, and then a fuel outlet. Depending on how much room I've got back to the carbies and that, I should be able to sit it in there. But what I can do is I can get that plate set up, tack it onto the bottom just so it's sitting there. Yeah, and then I can actually just sit this inside the frame and then work out roughly where it goes and put a texture mark on it, because you can reach in through the frame. So yeah, another step closer. That's my lunch, and that's the tank so far. So that's a folded sort of sheet, got that all fitted there. Maybe kind of missed the corner here, but I can fix that up. Just was hard to calculate what needed to go in there, but no dramas there. So I've just taped that on rather than tacking it on. So it's my tack tape, and then I'm going to sit it on the bike and work out where this needs to go, and that's probably going to have to go on that sort of angle, so that I'll have to get notched underneath. But we'll get it sitting in there, we'll get a texture out and work out angles and start chopping. So it's good there's plenty of room inside the frame there to be able to reach in and change things. So yeah, get it all sorted. so that's all on an angle now, and that can sit roughly there, and that's going to give lots of clearance for other stuff like fuel pumps and things. So what I'm going to do now is we've got this marked here, and I'm going to put a big massive dimple die here, smaller than the diameter of that, and then it'll give like a baffle there, but it'll allow the fuel to drop into what's effectively like a swell pot. So let's get that done. The tank's pretty much done, just got to weld a dash fitting on here. Originally I was going to put a hose tail on it, but because I want to actually take a fiberglass mold of this, realised it was going to be a total pain. Also earlier on you should have seen there's like a box built under the tank. What I've done instead is, mind the noise, is built like a tube style sump in the bottom of the tank. It's a bit hard to do one-handed, so I'll put this on the bench and show you. Capacity wise, it's very close to what was originally there anyway. That's basically going to have like a fitting or something like that, or maybe I might even see if I can find a Suzuki style vacuum fuel cutoff there, which would be perfect. And then that's all sort of done there. We're going to leak test it as well, that way I can go over and, you know, touch up any welds that might be leaking, because, you know, novice welder here. But I'm pretty happy with that, considering I haven't done much TIG welding in the last 10 years. So, and before that I was no guru at it anyway. So if anyone's watching this going, oh, that's crap, I mean, I'm pretty happy with that, to be brutally honest. But yeah, if anyone's watching this thinking it's, you know, should all be weld porn, it's me doing it, and I'm no welding expert. So I'm very happy with the result of the tank so far, and can't wait to see what it looks like all epoxied up and tidied up. Aside from that, yeah, pretty much got all the fairings mounted. Got a few little last minute changes to do here and there. Also, because I haven't got the stack dash for it, I've mentioned before, I've actually done this, which is I've got a 9899 Speedo, and don't mind that being silver, but that's just aluminium. I got an aluminium tube, made a circle for the top of it, welded it all the way around, and then I put it in the lathe and sort of cleaned it up as best as I can. And also where the indicators and the high beam was, I've got 3 little toggle switches here. So, because obviously being a race bike doesn't need them, but if I can sort of separate this one-handed. Yeah, so I've got this, there originally I was trying to use the plastic, but there just needed to be a bit more clearance for that toggle switch in there to sit. Proud of what's still there for the Speedo, because obviously being a race bike, it's not going to have a Speedo, so that sits just up a bit now. Means I can put other stuff there as well, but it's got a bit of clearance. Probably glue that in and paint that black as well, but yeah, now turn that into like a race bike Speedo. So still going to have an odometer, which is pointless, but at least I know how many Ks I've done at each track day. So yeah, pretty happy with that. Look, there's Robbie. He's on to his 7th litre of iced coffee for the day. That's Darren from Parts SA.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. That's his surname, from Parts SA.
From Parts SA, Darren.
Yeah, oh, that's my surname.
No one actually knows his real surname.
No, let's leave it like that.
Yeah.
pretty much got about 95% of the fab work done on this. A couple of little changes just to get things kind of right. But thanks for everyone who watched the last video. It was really good. Sorry it was 45 minutes long, but I just had so much stuff, so I just thought, you know, screw it, I'll just put it all into one big long video. But the one thing, and big thanks to my mate Alan Morrison, who's been harassing me about it, is yeah, the angle of the muffler wasn't exactly the way I wanted it, so I'm just tweaking that at the moment. It's actually not taking much work to do it. I've just got to change the bracket and rotate things, but I'll spin the camera around, give you a look at where I'm at with the bike and talk you through what I've done as a bit of an update. So this is where it's sitting at the moment. Basically the tank is what I'd call pretty much done. Only thing I'm waiting on is a fuel tap. I've got one from a 98R1 coming, so I need to make a mount for the bottom of that. It's just all in raw aluminium at the moment, which is great because being raw aluminium, it's never going to rust or anything like that. It's just sitting there. Did end up going back to a dash fitting because I think I mentioned that I want to take a fiberglass mould of this tank, and if it had a tail on it, then that'd pretty much be impossible to pull a mould off. Whereas a dash fitting, we can just wrap a little bit of clear film wrapper or something around that to stop the threads from getting filled up. But other than that, it's all sitting pretty much where I want it to be. The dash, as I mentioned, I haven't gone for the stack dash just because I can't get my hands on one at the moment, but I've got that in there. That's just a standard dash that I've modified, and I spun up and welded in this, so I've got a main kill switch sort of hidden away from, it's right down in there, which is a bit of a reach, but it also means that it's not going to be where I can accidentally flick it off. And then got other auxiliary switches here for like fan and maybe like rain light or something like that as well. And yeah, they can all be changed. Nothing's wired up yet, it's all just sitting in there, but that's pretty much that way. The other bit that I'm just talking about at the moment was the angle of the muffler was sitting probably a little bit too low, so I've just raised it up there now, so it's pretty much in line with the tail there, which is kind of the way it looked on the other bike. So the other thing that was a really tricky part too, if I sort of get in a little bit closer here, was the thickness of this part between here and the seat pan on the American bikes, and I'll put a picture in the side here, was actually thicker on some of the others, and it had me sort of baffled for a while because that main mounting bolt there on the side was actually lower on the subframe, but I was physically just couldn't get the thing to actually mount lower, so I sat there and just did it the way I thought was right, and the main thing was just getting the angle of the tail in line with the top triple clamp there. So that's how I sort of set it up, and now I've got the muffler kind of sitting where I want it to be, so I'm going to actually modify that bracket there, spin up a couple more top bits for it because the other ones they're a bit far gone to be welded onto again, so I'll just chop them off and start again. But yeah, it's just literally a case of lifting that bracket up, and it was also just rotating this so it kicked it up on a bit more of an angle. So yeah, it's all pretty good. I think I looked in one of the photos too, and that bottom, the spring was sort of spun on an angle as well, so maybe that's how they did it back then. But yeah, it's all looking pretty good. And sadly, as I may have mentioned before, Dan Kyle, who built those bikes originally, who was a big part in building those bikes, he passed away, but his legacy will carry on with the new guys that have got the bikes, and it's good that I'm actually chatting to them. You know, Adam from Iconic's got one of them, and then one of Dan's business partners, Mike's got the other one. So yeah, very cool. So yeah, can't wait to get all this done. I don't know why I'm moving around like this, probably making you sick, but so the next step is to just get this bracket done, and then I'm hopefully going to get my mate Travis to machine up a new brake caliper bracket for the back. So I've got to source a caliper, some sort of Brembo caliper for the back, but then I can do the underslung caliper like the original ones had. And yeah, other than that, I mean, like I've mentioned in the past, it's not going to be completely authentic. The old ones ran no starter motor, they ran no stator, obviously for weight reasons, so they were a total loss system. But just because this bike's more going to be for display purposes and riding at events like motorsport festivals and stuff like that, I want something that's just easier to sort out. So yeah, I'll still have a starter motor and a stator and stuff like that in it, so it's a few kilos, but because I'm not going for any records or any titles or anything like that, yeah, a couple of kilos won't hurt. But on the outside it still looks a piece. So Yeah, but very happy with the progress so far.
Bendix Moto. Ride with confidence.